thank you all for being here. I have often said that in Troy we are the beneficiaries of the vision and the investment of those who came before us. Nowhere is that more evident than with respect to our parks. We are fortunate to have a number of parks throughout the various neighborhoods because of the generations that came before us, recognizing the value of these small patches of nature that give us respite and recreation. Today we stand in Beman Park, a park conceived of and purchased for the city by a local merchant named John Sherry in 1879. The park was named in honor of Reverend Nathan Beman, a former abolitionist minister from the First United Presbyterian Church in Troy. Beman Park has served this neighborhood in a number of iterations over the past 144 years. Over that time, it has hosted gazebos, monuments, fountains, trails, and playgrounds of all sorts. And today we are embarking on the next iteration, underwritten by the American Rescue Plan, a program championed by our congressional representative, Paul Tonko. Congressman Tonko has been a stalwart supporter of the city of Troy and has worked tirelessly to bring much-needed resources to our city during his time in Congress. His efforts ensured the passage of ARPA, and it has allowed us to undertake various projects such as we see here today. This and similar projects across the city are only possible because of his advocacy in our nation's capital. It has truly been a pleasure working with him during my tenure, and on behalf of the residents of Troy, I thank him for everything he has made possible in our city. And with that, it's a pleasure to introduce our Congressman, Paul Tonko.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mayor, for your leadership in the city of Troy. Thank you to all the elected officials who have joined us for your participation in what I think is a sound investment of federal dollars that will allow for these gathering places, our parks, to be all the more vital and all the more accessible. So that's really important. You know, when COVID impacted not only this country but the world, the national economy and the global economy were severely impacted by the COVID-19 experience. And so it was important for us to, yes, take care of the public health crisis first by addressing the response medically, having vaccines available for individuals and the like. Then it was also the concern for small business, making certain those doors could be staying open so that they were not shuttered and perhaps going out of business as a result. And then there was the impact on state and local governments, making certain that all of our partners in local government were given assistance from the federal perspective because of the economic blow that they were absorbing because of this COVID-19 experience. And so a number of measures came forward that effectively accomplished those goals. But the American Rescue Plan was about looking at the local perspective, assisting local governments and state governments in a way that would empower them through this very challenging time, a once-in-a-century public health crisis, and one that was historic in its dimensions and its impact. But as we did that, we wanted to make certain that there was local control. And so today we look at the dollars from the American Rescue Plan, the $350 billion nationwide that were invested with local spin being the outcome, making certain that localities, people in those given communities would determine how best to invest those dollars in a post-COVID scenario. What we have here is the involvement of many projects across the country. And I was proud to not only work on that measure, to put it together as a response to COVID, but also to support it with my vote. Now, it didn't have a unanimous vote. And as the president is fond of saying at many stops across the country, whether your rep voted for this or not, we're investing in all communities across this great nation. So I'm proud to have helped author American Rescue Plan, voting for that plan, and now seeing the investment of those dollars here after determinations made by the Troy city government and Rensselaer County government and all of the 20th Congressional District that I represent. This area of activity, putting together a sound, revitalized park, is important. We learned again from COVID that isolation and lack of socialization are not good for any of us. It's not good for the community. We need to connect. Gathering places such as this, you know, looking back at the very long history on this park, thinking back of those community leaders and community activists that were visionaries, that said we need these areas, these acres of land where people can gather, where it's commonplace, and people can share stories and experiences and build a quality of life. And so now we revitalize these parks. A park, by the way, that is so historically significant in that it was named after an abolitionist minister. And Reverend Beman's namesake of a park here inspires us today, because we know that we can make change in our country, and as an abolitionist, he reminded us of that. So we embrace that history of this park, always looking to be the more perfect union that our framers of the Constitution invited us to be. So today we're here in a park, $1 million of rescue plan money that will go into Beman Park, making certain that drainage is addressed. A huge problem. The mayor told me as we walked through some of this territory here today, we would not have been able to do it a few weeks ago because it was so soggy. And so you want this park to be accessible, and certainly drainage is an important factor of it. Making certain that the paving of the pathways will be there so that everyone, including our friends and neighbors who are developmentally disabled or challenged in some way, folks with different abilities are able to enjoy the park also. And making certain that some heritage components on the peak, the crest of this park, will bring people together as a gathering space and enable them to reflect on some of the heritage, because Courtney told me they're going to have some of the monuments involved here. So I thank Courtney. I certainly thank Mr. Ryan from the Malloy Construction Group, because he's investing in his original first neighborhood. And so that is a good thing for us to maintain that spirit of community. And so I thank everyone for this opportunity. It is nice to see how these dollars, the $350 million, which found their way to Troy in the form of $42 million plus, are now being utilized. And this is how it was intended to be as an outcome. Locals deciding how best to invest in this money, different funds that went into different elements of the community, and in this case, community gathering space, upgrading and allowing for our parks to be a strong element for the post-COVID experience. So with that, really pleased to be with you today, taking the tour, being reminded of all the thoughts, all the needs, all the concerns that are being addressed and gathered into a project like this. So thank you to Malloy, thank you to Labella for their outstanding work. And now I get to introduce an individual who's taken on the role of community activist. Lisa Rodriguez, we thank you for your architectural background, which makes you an even more informed, sensitive voice on behalf of the park. Thank you for your input as a local who's on the borders of the park. Lisa Rodriguez, the mic is yours.
Hello everybody, thank you for inviting me to speak on behalf of the neighborhood. My name is Lisa Rodriguez, as you stated. I live around the corner on 15th Street, and I raise my kids in this neighborhood. We specifically picked to raise them in the city. We wanted to be near services and the schools, and we can walk to everything, and this was a beautiful park to have at our disposal. It did have some problems, but they played here, and still on occasion, 17 and 20 years old, will grab their tube and slide down that hill over there on a snowy day. So on behalf of the neighborhood, I want to thank Congressman Tonko, Mayor Madden, Sue Steele, all the public servants that made this happen. Thank you for your service, for heeding our call to invest in the park, and identifying American Rescue Fund plans to make that investment in the park. So while, as a couple of things that the mayor said, while the park is a jewel in the neighborhood and a boon for the city, it was suffering from drainage issues and from disrepair. And much of the year, parts of the playground weren't usable. There was standing water there. This last park cleanup, my husband took a shovel and took 4 inches of mud off sidewalks so people could pass through the sidewalk area. When this park was donated to the city in 1879, it was an oasis on the edge of the city. All of these buildings weren't here. It was a place of respite for city dwellers to come and get away from the city. So fast forward, 144 years later, a lovely historic district has evolved around the park, and today we need it to be more of a community center and a place that provides opportunities for people of all abilities and ages. The park plans address many, many issues, and I know the neighborhood will be amazed and delighted by the transformation. In addition to addressing the drainage issues, there will be upgrades to the walkways, think lighting, a new play area, attention to the landscaping. The trees are old, they need trimming, a lot of them have had to be removed, and there's still some historic landscaping still here from 100 years ago, which I believe they're maintaining. And they're putting a dog run-in area in. It's going to have double gates, it's going to have an area for large dogs and small dogs. I am particularly excited about that. I'm not a dog owner, but we have asked the city for a long time. We told them we want a dog park. We feel it's an excellent resource for dog owners, and it's a way for neighbors to build community, especially because of our proximity to RPI. We have a lot of students in the neighborhood. Some of them have dogs. A dog park is a great way for neighbors to meet neighbors and form community. So really excited about the dog park aspect and just upgrading of everything. This park is a centerpiece of the neighborhood, but it's also an amenity for the whole city. The last time I was here, I chatted up somebody sitting on a bench, brought his daughter over. He came from a completely different part of the city to this park because he thought this was a great park, and his neighborhood didn't have one. So I thank you all again for bringing this park back to its potential and making it a resource for everybody in the city, and especially my neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, so this wraps up the press conference. If you have questions relative to the
Patrick,
park?
how much of the ARPA money is the city investing in the parks in the city?
in total, 3.12, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood.
What's the timeline on the project look like?
This one will be done this spring.
This park should be completed in the spring, depending upon how the winter goes.
And there was another 2 for bonding, 2 mil for the parks in addition to the ARPA.
Anything else? Thank you all very much.
for being here.
Congressman, any final comments?
Yeah, I just think it's so good to hear all of the community thinking that was brought into investing in this park and revitalizing it. It's going to be a great asset. And again, it's just good to see how these dollars are being applied locally and what the thought process has been. I think it's the way government works best, with the feds providing the resources and then the local spin on what the most important elements ought to be. I was sharing with some when we were up on the hill, at the crest of the hill, and Courtney shared that there are going to be benches around the perimeter of the once fountain. And I shared with her that when I worked on a Fort Plain playground in western Montgomery County, and we got resources for them decades ago, but they reviewed the plans and everybody put their thoughts together and then went back out for final review. Greater community, school community, business community, and it filtered down from high school to middle school to grade school. And it was a kindergartner that found a weakness in the plan. And the designer said, "What do you want?" He said, "Benches." So after all that review, the kindergartner said, "Good to reach out to all the elements." And they asked him why the benches. He said, "How else do you make friends?" So I hope everybody makes tons of friends as they gather in the revitalized Beman Park. Thanks, everyone.